Hey all, it's Matt, your average gamer, and I've got a bit of an update for Elden Ring along with discussing my final opinion on a DLC timeline. This is going to be relatively quick with many bits of information popping up throughout the video. First thing is the news this week. The CEO of Bandai Namco in an interview stated DLC is releasing soon. Now on its face this might not be huge news. CEO speak on the word soon could mean a year from now, which is why we need to think farther past this interview in a single word and more into logic about DLC and when it will release. A while back, FromSoftware released financial expectations throughout the fiscal year. They had no plans for Elden Ring profits in November or December. As we're getting closer, it seems less and less likely that DLC will be out this year. Now, throughout this video, we're going to talk about my expectations and probably the most realistic timeline that you can come across for Elden Ring DLC. It's starting to look a little bit clearer, at least for me. It seems to have a sensible timeline, and I'm starting to get excited about when the release may be, and we're going to talk about that throughout this video. As you can see, we're going to be mainly exploring the lands between in the background. Elden Ring is a fantastic game. It truly is a masterpiece, and honestly, I'm still enjoying it a year and a half later, but much like you guys, I cannot wait until DLC and the expansion meaning it's probably going to be quite big, comes out, hopefully, along this timeline. Now, my original timeline, and I will mention this later in the video, was between March and June of 2024. We're going to talk about how I feel like that moved up a little bit, but first things first, we're going to get into a little bit of the silence on DLC and how everything has turned out so far to this point. Yeah, there's been a lot of silence, more than we'd want at this point. At least give us something, right? Well, this isn't really odd for FromSoftware and Bandai Namco. Keep in mind, Armored Core 6's marketing only ramped up right before its release, so it's fair to assume that DLC will fall into that same category. Yeah, we literally just saw this with Armored Core 6, right? There was a ton of silence for several months, and then all of a sudden, a couple of months before its release, maybe a month or two, it was then coming out in September, and there were all these trailers and talk of Armored Core 6, so this seems fairly normal for Elden Ring DLC as well. But how soon is soon? Is this something to get hyped about? Yes and no. The CEO for Bandai Namco, who works with FromSoftware on games like Armored Core and Elden Ring, could have said in the near future or something that indicated it's even farther out. However, the word soon is at least somewhat hopeful. Keep in mind, Armored Core 6, even though it's going to be getting updates still, is now out of the way for both companies. As far as Armored Core 6 goes, it's going to be a long time before you hear most likely about another Armored Core. So the concentration now should go right back to Elden Ring DLC. This is definitely going to be a positive thing, given the fact that one of their biggest releases that they were super hyped about in Armored Core 6 is now out of the way. They can go back and focus on Elden Ring DLC, which for most of us at this point is what we're waiting for, right? Elden Ring DLC is supposed to make the game even better, and if it lives up to the past Souls DLCs, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. For those not familiar with the Dark Souls DLCs, the Ring City specifically in Dark Souls 3 was phenomenal with even tougher bosses than the base game, so when we're looking at Elden Ring DLC, we're most likely looking at bosses that are even tougher than the base game. So now we're going to talk about that timeline, the most obvious timeline. A lot of things right now are pointing to a 2024 release. I do not think it's going to be released this year in 2023. That would surprise me at this point. It would feel a little bit too early since we haven't heard much. So I do think 2024 is definitely along what we're going to be looking at. Now, that being said, I hope I'm wrong. It's one of those situations where I feel like if I'm wrong, that's a better thing, because then we get Elden Ring DLC even sooner, right? We get it in November or December, and everyone's happy. However, that doesn't feel like the most realistic window for DLC, as 2023 feels a little bit too early. There's a very specific timeline that I think could work well for them, and it seems incredibly likely at this point as we move forward with the end of 2023 and 2024. Now, it is a little bit disappointing we haven't heard anything since the update in February. It's been fairly silent. Hopefully that's going to change soon. And I say the word soon because that's what we're here to talk about, right? We're here to talk about that one word, that single word that came out this week when we heard the CEO of Bandai Namco say soon, and we're not sure what he means by that, but we are sure that DLC is the next thing on pretty much everybody's mind, including Bandai Namco and FromSoftware. And you guys are just like me. I mean, as a content creator and as the people watching this video, you're on the same boat, right? We're all in the same boat. We're waiting for DLC. It feels like 2 years has been a very long time. It really does. By the time it releases, it's going to be about 2 years with my estimation, and that does feel like a long time. But keep in mind, I've mentioned this before, Elden Ring took 5 years to make, so if the DLC takes 2 years, and they already have the base mechanics of the game down, you gotta figure it's gonna be at least a third, maybe half the size of the base game. With very difficult bosses, as Souls games in the past have taught us, and it's going to be a ton of fun too. This is going to be a DLC where people are like, oh, well, no, I'm not going to pick it up when the time comes around, but once we hear about it and it's fantastic, everybody's going to be back on the Elden Ring bandwagon, and we're going to be talking about probably one of the best DLC expansions of any game. So now for the timeline that makes sense. An announcement at the Game of the Year Awards and/or trailer, and a release date around the 2-year anniversary of Elden Ring, sometime in late February or early March is now my estimation, moved up from my previous estimation about a month or two ago when I said between March and June of 2024. Now this timeline makes sense due to the fact that Elden Ring won Game of the Year last year, and then February is the 2-year anniversary, right? This would be a smart marketing move that could have it hit the spotlight for minimal cost. I think there's a solid chance early 2024 will be when we see Elden Ring's DLC. So why am I making this video? Well, it wasn't just Twitter, well I mean X, apparently it is X now. In this interview, I've been asked about my opinion on the subject many times. I thought a video on my opinion would help people understand my thoughts in a likely DLC timeline. Keep in mind, I'll still be covering Elden Ring, but I will be focusing on more intense quality videos, aka longer and more builds, as opposed to the daily content I used to post. We'll probably be looking at 2 or 3 bigger Elden Ring videos per week if I can keep pace with that. I'm also trying out Lies of P, and so far it's been fantastic as I've been enjoying the challenge. I attach my review of the game so far below for those that are curious, but so far it has a very Bloodborne feel. It obviously was inspired by Bloodborne, but it's been a lot of fun so far. Very, very good game. Definitely worth a grab. Yeah, that one's certainly worth a pickup, so be sure to check that out. And as always, I'm going to continue making Elden Ring content. And I gotta ask, is 2 years too long for Elden Ring DLC if it's going to end up being massive and great quality? Be sure to comment your opinion on that below and when you think DLC will be out. For me, though, I am sticking now with around February or March of 2024, mid-2024 at the latest, and as you can see on screen here, the last major update that we got for the game, other than patches, was the Coliseum update around December. It's been a long time. I hope you guys enjoyed this update, and as always, thank you, literally all of you that have made this channel happen. When I started, I had no idea what this would turn into, but now, over 15,000 subs later and almost 5 million channel views, I couldn't have expected more. As some of you may know, I deal with a lot of physical health issues and whatnot throughout the day. I think I've mentioned that a few times, and as far as this channel, it's really turned my life around. I'm super thankful to everyone who supports the channel, and when DLC comes, none of you will be forgotten about here at Your Average Gamer. This channel is for everyone who just wants to play games and get your mind off the life stuff that can drag us down at times. So keep playing what you love, and DLC will be here before you know it. If you haven't already, be sure to sub. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day.